All right, we have started recording. So welcome everybody to the webinar today. Excited to be here, and I'm going to be talking really quickly, and I'll apologize in advance because I couldn't edit out the material I have today. There's a ton I want to give you, and I'm actually going to set a timer. And the reason I'm setting this is because I have promised that I am going to start this material within 5 minutes. One of the reasons that that's so important to me is because I have attended webinars where you hear the background and you hear, the successes, and it goes on and on and on for like 20 minutes before you even get to some really worthwhile material. So I am going to make sure that I move it along as quickly as possible, and I'm going to try to get into the quality of the material within 5 minutes. So, in case you, let's just see why this is not happening. There we go. In case you're wondering where you're at, getting massive exposure for your business is what we're doing here. And just some housekeeping. So you can hear me, that's great. I'm very happy about that. If you can set your mic on mute, it should be on mute, as I usually set it up that way. If you want to interject with a question, that's okay. Just take yourself off mute, but ensure there's no noise in the background. Even the slightest bit of typing. So even now I'm hearing some noise going on. Let's see what's going on here. I'm going to manage participants, and we're going to mute. Okay, there we go. So that's taken care of. All right. So I encourage you to grab a notebook because I'm going to have a lot of material, and it's solid material. This isn't fluff. This is material that you can use automatically. Like, you can go right into your computer, start using the ideas that I've given you to start reaching out to media. So I encourage you to close Facebook or other distractions. I know that's really hard. Even turn off your phone, but give yourself this gift. Give yourself an hour to really concentrate on the material that I'm going to be presenting. And I also urge you to stay to the end. I'm going to have some bonus giveaways, and I'm going to tell you about this system that I've developed that's going to take you from, I don't know how to reach out to media, to actually developing, writing, constructing, and sending out your first media pitch. So, about me, you know what? I'm not going to go into 10, 15 minutes about my background. You're all intelligent. You know where to find my LinkedIn page. Go ahead and look it up. I've been told this is where I'm breaking the rules in the webinar. I hope it's not going to bite me in the butt, but I don't need to go on and on about all the extensive background that I have. But just in case you're wondering, well, why should I pay attention to you? Here are a few things that I've done. I started at CBC Television Montreal. I've been an editor at a variety of magazines, Home Makeover, so I have background in home decor magazines. I've been on Global Television. I've worked behind the scenes at CBC Radio, CBC Radio Montreal as well, Edmonton, the Vancouver Relocation Guide, and Green Space Magazine. These are all magazines I've edited and radio stations that I've been producing. And finally, Business in Vancouver newspaper. That is my most recent, oh, I hear some news in the background. Let's mute that. My most recent iteration is Business in Vancouver newspaper. And these are some of the sections that I was actually responsible for editing. So you can see I do have an extensive amount of editing and producing background, just in case you're wondering. And going ahead, since in the last 3 years, what I've been doing is actually presenting workshops, doing one-on-one consultations, appearances in meetup groups, and so on. So if you're ever curious as to where I'm going to be and when I'm presenting, you could just go onto my homepage and you'll find that information there. There we go. So now I'm supposed to talk about my successes for 15 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, $75,000 in 4.5 minutes if you just follow my system. Instead, just go to my website and look at my testimonials. Everything is there. People who are going to let you know exactly how I've done and how they've done with using my coursework and following my instruction. Oh, I'm over by 5 seconds. I've got to speed it up. So these editorial planning and content planners, this is what I'm going to give you at the end of the webinar today. And this is the secret that I'm going to show you within this webinar. This is a tip that even PR companies have not used, and it's a surefire way to get an editor or producer or online publisher's attention. And I'm going to tell you more about that in the webinar. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about the Media Mastery system that I mentioned that will clear up any of your questions. And if you do have a real desire to be interviewed on television or in a magazine or to write a column for a newspaper, this will tell you how to do it. Okay, let's get started. I think I'm behind by like 30 seconds. As I mentioned, I do have a lot of material, so I hope that you will focus in, grab a coffee, get your notebook, open up another file, and just sit back and enjoy. So I'm going to start with this little structure here. So this gives you an idea of what actually goes on when you're dealing with magazines, newspapers, radio, or websites. Essentially, as an editor, producer, online publisher, we receive ideas for stories from 5 sources. So first off, we receive from the public. That's the most obvious place where people just send us their ideas. This could be entrepreneurs. This could be a marketing person at a company, just directly sending in material. Another way people might send their material is to a journalist that works within a radio station or newspaper, and the journalist will then go to the editor and say, hey, look, here's an idea for a story from this person. Is this a good idea? Do you want me to go ahead with it? Or the journalist might come up with their own idea for a story from watching the news or being online, and then they will go directly to the editor or producer or publisher with this idea. Or the client in a PR company. So the client goes to a PR company and says, I want some publicity and exposure. And then the PR company will go to the editor or producer and so on. Or as an editor, I might get ideas from the internet directly. And I want to just explain, I'm going to use the word editor just because it's a lot easier than constantly saying editor, producer, online publisher, but it's really the same thing. This in the yellow box, these are the decision makers. These are the buck stops there. So you can see every flow of ideas for story will go to the editor or the producer of a TV radio show or an online publisher. And that's where I have lived for the last 20 years. So I have always been the one to receive this information. This brings me to why I started this whole thing to begin with and what's going to launch this webinar today. And that is this guy, Roger Killen, you may know of him. He actually sent me this press release back in 2012. And to be honest, it kind of freaked me out. Now, normally, if an editor received this, they actually wouldn't even look at it. I mean, there's just too much text, and the story ideas are not clear, and so it might just end up right in the recycling bin. But I knew Roger, and I said, you know what? I am going to redo this for you if you let me use it as a bad example on my webinar. So Roger said, okay, and that's what I've done. And when I saw this, I realized, you know what? There's a real need for people who are entrepreneurs or running small businesses who cannot afford $5,000 a month for a PR company. Like, some of them just can't. And there are also people who are working in PR companies who may not have all the information they need. A lot of people in PR companies come through public relations programs or they might be journalists, but they haven't sat behind an editor's desk. So they may not have those tips that a lot of the editors have and those little secrets. So that's why I decided to launch into this. So I'm going to ask you to all run over to the chat box and tell me a little bit about where you are at in your media coverage. You can just write it out, or you can type in A, B, C, or D. Maybe you haven't even tried, you know, you've seen people on TV shows, or you've seen them in magazines and you think, yeah, that would be great, but you didn't know where to start. So you didn't even try. Or maybe you've tried and you didn't get any results, or you've gotten results and you want more. Or maybe you're like, I don't really know what to do with this, and you're hiding under your sofa. So a lot of people have gotten some results and want more consistent. That's great. That's very good. Okay, good for you for reaching out. And if you want to, with a bullet, if you want to maybe, Mark, you can tell me, or Shona, where have you actually gotten coverage? And just type that in. And I'm just going to go back and go through. Okay, so far I haven't seen anybody hiding under the couch. That's good. Hiding under the sofa. So good. So why don't we just take a little look at why you would want to access media to begin with, for those people as well. A lot of times you reach out to media, it's like, I don't know, or you have heard about it and you don't really know what the goal is. So one of the biggest things that you're going to get from mainstream media is the fact that it's free. When you have somebody interview you, this is not something that's paid. And I want to make this really clear. This is not where you write an article and you pay somebody to put it in their magazine. That's called advertorial, and that's not what I'm here for. I want to have you be able to attract the interest from media, so they want to interview you and you're not going to pay. Or you might be interested in writing an advice or expert column for a magazine, and you're going to offer this. You're not going to pay to have it in. You may not get paid, but you get the free publicity. The other thing is the credibility. There is nothing that can match the credibility you get from an independent news source. And the reason that's so is because when I recall when I was an editor at Business in Vancouver, I would not want to put anybody in the newspaper who I did not already vet as being credible and have expertise in what they were talking about. Otherwise, that reflects badly on the media outlet. So you could post in your own blog, on your own website, in LinkedIn, but you're talking about yourself, and that doesn't mean that it's true. So when you're seen as an independent expert in mainstream media, that puts your credibility through the roof. There really is still nothing as comparable as having that credibility. The second reason is access to tens of thousands of potential clients. And I'm going to get more into this in a minute, because as you know, the headline of the title of this webinar is massive exposure. So why wouldn't you want to get access to tens of thousands of clients? And then since the media outlets have done all the marketing for you, you're just on their coattails. You take advantage of that. The third thing a lot of people don't know about is media feeds on itself. So as a morning show producer, so a morning radio show, I might be in the morning at 4 or 5 a.m. I'm looking at the early morning dailies in the terms of the newspapers to check and see, was there any breaking news that we didn't catch? And is there something we want to follow up on? Or are there interesting stories about people that we might want to follow up on? Or I'll be reading magazines. I'll be looking at online websites. I'll be looking at other news sources to see things that I might have missed. And then if there's something interesting and we could forward the story, I might go after the same people who have been interviewed in that article. Or I see a column that somebody has written in one newspaper, I might be interested in interviewing them on, if I were a producer from a TV show. So this is how media kind of feeds on itself. if I see somebody who's already been in a media outlet, as I said, they have more credibility. So I'm more likely to have trust in them as an expert, and I'm more likely to actually invite them or to be a columnist or speak on the radio or interview them for a story. And of course, all of this can lead to direct purchases for your product or service. You can get speaking requests, especially if you're on radio or television and you're presenting very well. It's a great way to get speaking opportunities and collaborations for people who might be in similar businesses or complementary businesses to you. So here's just an example of what I was talking about. So this is somebody who's at Mentorship BC. I don't know if she actually is there anymore, but she came to me. She was doing her best through social media and otherwise to try and build her following and to get the word out. And when I spoke with her, I said, well, you know, where do you want to be? Where's your market? And she basically said, well, I'm trying to get into BC Business. So I helped her write an email pitch. And you know what? This is not a newsy story. A lot of time people are worried because they have to have some sort of breaking news story. You don't have to. This is a perfect example. If you have an expertise in a particular area, this page, DIY Management, which is produced in BC Business, is a great place to be. So not only did she get like an immediate response, I think it was within a couple of days, even less than that. So she's in the BC Business, 100,000 readers. That is what BC Business has between its print, publication, and online. And what did it take her? Like an hour to write the media pitches. And she doesn't even write this column. This column is actually an interview. So all she had to do was answer questions on the phone. And she gets a full page in a magazine with 100,000 readers. And because she is doing a business-to-business service, she is in front of targeted readers because these readers are looking at business publications and they are within the business realm themselves. I feel like I'm going really quickly. So I just want, if you wanted to just touch base with me, maybe type in if you think that the speed is okay. As I mentioned, it's being recorded as far as I can tell, so I'll have that available. You can go over it again, but I want to make sure people are just following as I go. So here's some other numbers you might be interested in just to underline this point. So Vita Online Lifestyle Magazine, it used to be called Vitamin Daily. 3.2 million monthly impressions, 90,000 national subscribers. And the little bonus that I have for you at the end of the show, at the end of the webinar, it's going to show you how to get that the content calendar. Forgot how to say a content calendar for Vita Daily. So that will actually help you if you want to reach out to this magazine. They are online. They cover clothing, health, travel, the general lifestyle areas, home as well. So if you're in a business to consumer market, this is a great magazine to be in. A Business in Vancouver newspaper, 40,000 plus subscribers. And I've had numerous people who have wanted to write columns in there. We work together to create the pitch and off they go. And I think pretty much I'm batting 100% with regards to response from the editor. So, you know, the key is always, can you filter your email through all the noise that is going on in the editor's inbox? And, you know, I think the success is measured in whether or not they get a response, first off. And of course, if they're getting a positive response, even better. And then another example, the Marilyn Dennis Show, which is on CTV. There, it's actually produced locally. And if you wanted to do something, again, in the realm of lifestyle, they do clothing, food, hairstyles, that kind of thing, 270,000 viewers. So imagine if you have a fitness studio, or if you deal with health products, or you have a clothing store and you wanted to go on and talk about latest fashions, 270,000 people. I'm just curious, if you're listening right now and you have 270,000 followers, please put it in the chat box. I'd love to know. I have a feeling there aren't that many. And probably it would take you maybe 10 years, if you could even in that time, to generate that kind of a following. So obviously, if you could attract or get in front of this number of people by simply writing a media pitch, which might take an hour or two, you know, what a great way to leverage somebody else's work in terms of getting in front of your ideal clients. So I'm just going to check in again and see, just in the process of reaching out to media and thinking about it, here are some of the myths that a lot of people have. So I wonder if any of these have resonated with you. Oh, I see here Sue would love to get into BIV. Sue, I'm your person. I've been an editor at BIV. I was an editor at BIV for 5 years. I know all the ins and outs, so I can definitely help you there. So how many people have think that your story really has to be newsy? You know, that it's like, oh, if there's not a breaking news story, then what am I doing? There's just no way to get in here. Or you're not a professional writer, so how on earth can you write a column, or what are you expected to do? Maybe the media is going to come at you and ask you to write something that you won't be able to. That's a common concern. Another one is, where do I put my article, or where do I, reach out to? Where do I want to have an article written about me? So maybe there's a little bit of confusion as to, don't know where I'm going to go, so why should I even start? David Simpson says, how about, I didn't know that I could do this. Absolutely. It's so funny, and I have to admit, from the point of view of somebody in the industry, and you're probably familiar with this, you don't really know what it's like for people outside the industry. Like for me, I just like, come on, give me stories if you want. When I was an editor, I would go to networking events and practically be begging people to email me with a story idea for their to cover something in their business. And people were like, really? Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, like, who do you think's in the paper? Who do you think are interviewed? When we had a small business section in Business in Vancouver, where do you think those people came from, So it's kind of funny. I remember actually spending a lot of time, it was like pulling teeth sometimes, just to get people to send me an email with a story idea. Another problem people have, not sure who to target. So Shauna, say more about that. Do you mean who your ideal target is, like who your clients would be, or not sure which media to target? Because those are a bit two different things. You do really have to know who your own target is before you want to reach out to media. And that is something that I put into the Media Mastery system. It is essential to be clear on who you want to reach out to before you, in terms of your ideal client, before you start approaching media outlets, in order to have a really good strategy. So I always make sure the number one thing that I deal with, whether I am in a course or I'm sitting across from you consulting, we start off with, okay, who do you want to read your material? Who do you want to see you on television? Who is it that is going to be, your ideal client? So Shauna says, not sure which media. Perfect question. It's a little bit more obvious if you're in a business-to-business realm that you want to be in business publications. But Shauna, why don't you just mark in there what you do, and maybe I could just, I'll drop in when I can to use that as an example. So let's move on. Here it is, the story checklist. So this is part of the system that I've developed, identifying 7 criteria that would enable you to figure out how to address media. So this is the starting point. Once you know what you do and what your business is, and once you figured out who your ideal client is. Now I want to point something out. This is really interesting. I do not have the word news in here. I do not have got to be a breaking news story, because most people don't have breaking news stories. They don't. And this is where it's so problematic when I hear people talk about what makes a good story when they're interviewed, or I've read it actually in BC Business, they had a column about it. The first thing is make it newsy. Well, what if you don't have something that's newsy? What if you don't have an event? What if you're just somebody who has an expertise and you want more publicity? You want to be seen as an expert in your field. So that's why I don't include the news item, the newsiness in those 7. It's really great if you have it, that's a bonus, but you don't need it in order to actually get media coverage. So Shauna says interior design and home staging, B2B and B2C, different pitches to different targets. Yes, so yes, just to answer Shauna's question, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Is it Shona or Shauna? You will create different, Shona, you will create different media pitches, whether you're going to business or whether you're going to consumer, but the same template. So I've developed a series of 6 templates, each one for a particular type of media outreach. And they are free to people who take my course. And when you know, okay, I want to go to a home design magazine, you're going to take the template and you're going to fill it in a certain way, focusing on the business to consumer market. If you want to reach out to a business to business publication, you'll take the same template and you'll fill it out with that. So you have different ways of accessing different media, but using one template. And that is if you, for instance, want to write an expert column, I'm thinking you might want to do that. I have another template if you want somebody to come and interview you, so you don't actually have to do the writing. Somebody is going to call you and do an interview with you. That's a different kind of template. They're all just fill in the blanks pretty much. And I have examples and samples in my course that I give out. So let's jump into this. Knowledge about a service or product. That's the first thing. You've got to know what you do. Now I'm going to take it for granted that all of you know what you do. But that's not enough. You need to be able to generate interest in what you do. So some of the things I suggest people ask themselves is, what surprises people when you talk about your business? What do you offer that's a bit new or different from somebody else? I don't know if you've heard of the book, Be Different or Be Dead. It's a great book that talks about distinguishing yourself from other people. It's great as a bonus in terms of getting access to media. Again, it's not essential, but it does help. And what is it that editors and producers might not know? So as an editor, you know, I had to know a little bit about a lot of things. So I had a little bit of knowledge about pretty much every industry, but it wasn't knowledge that was in depth. So you are the best person to let editors know maybe new trends. I mean, you know, I'll use Shauna as an example. If you're in an interior design or home staging, are there new materials coming in that are really transforming the industry? Are there things that people really don't know in terms of what you have to address when you're staging your home? Maybe there's a new trend where, I would love a home stager to come in, even though I'm living here. I'd love them to just stage my home because you know how great it looks and then go away, but I'm still going to live here. Maybe that's a trend. And editors and producers don't know all of this information. So part of a pitch is giving information that you know that editors don't. And it's the same when I'm just thinking from my point of view, I understand my industry, but you don't. So think about things that you might know that other people don't. And this helps in demonstrating your knowledge of your service or product. I just want to, make sure I didn't skip a slide. Okay. So this is an example of somebody whose knowledge focused on client resource management, and he wanted to write a column for business in Vancouver. So we put together a pitch where he is basically demonstrating, this is what I do, and this is what I know about what I do. The interesting part is I thought I understood client resource management just from generally, being in Business of Vancouver as an editor in that realm. But when I sat and talked to him, there were a lot of things that I just really? I never knew that about it. How much money does it save? And how is it giving you the one up on the competition? And what else does it? There was just so much that I realized he had knowledge of that he could actually pitch. And that's what we really focused on. We put together a pitch. He got a response by the end of the day, and ended up writing a column in Business Vancouver. This, by the way, if you were to buy an ad in this space, this is the top half of a page, it would be a $3,500 value. So just to let you know, if you don't want to pay for it, you don't have to. Pitching and learning how to pitch and writing a column can get you into that same kind of space. This is an example of an article that was written by me about food trucks. And this actually includes 3 elements from that list. So the more elements that you can include from that list of 7, the better. So if you have 1 or 2 elements from that list, that's great. If you could check off 3 or 4, even better. So in this case, in the food truck, the reason why this was an interesting story, first of all, they had very interesting knowledge about the food, and there were some very, if you've ever done the kind of the food truck tour around Vancouver, there are some fascinating stories about where their food comes from. I think of Japa Dog, for example, has a great story. Anyway, there's a lot I can go into. They had knowledge about operations. It was really interesting what it took to run a food truck. How do they get licenses? And there was now a new trend. So this hit on another point, a trend where the food trucks were no longer just sitting on the street, but were actually catering. So they hit on 3 points in that list, and so it made for a very good story. Now notice, this is not a newsy breaking news story. There wasn't anything new happening. This was just an ongoing industry that, when I started to look into this story, turned out that had some really good information there. So the second thing I point out, expertise on business operations. This is something people overlook constantly. They always focus on their product, but every person who runs a business has knowledge about business operations. And this is a way to get into media, what I call through the side door. So here's an example. I see the massage therapist there. I knew somebody who was a massage therapist. I was putting together some material for a Business in Vancouver small business section. And in conversation with her, I found out she knew a lot about, what's it called? Appointment scheduling software. Those Calendly and all that kind of stuff. I've been through craziness trying to find a good one. And I said to her, well, why don't you write a column about how you found the appropriate appointment management software for your business? She was not an expert. She was not in that industry. She was a masseuse. But we weren't going to write a story about her and her business, like in terms of what she does. So I said, another way you can get into this small business section is to write me a column, tell me about 4 or 5 different applications you tried, and tell me why you chose the one you did. Sue says the info you could share on this one. You love it. Yeah. And you know what? You don't even have to be successful at business operations. You know that some of the best stories are the biggest failures and what you learn from them. In fact, Business Vancouver used to have, I don't think they run it anymore, it was My Life or a story about my life or something like that, where it was just a story about how somebody overcame a challenge. These make really, really good stories and are good to put together in packages. I can't go into that. I don't have enough time to explain that. But just start to think about what have you learned about growing a business? Do you know anything about customer relations? Do you have a storefront? If you have a storefront, then you have knowledge about how do you find where to put your storefront? What do you know about signing a lease? All of this is information that you have that could make interesting story with transferable lessons to other business owners who want to learn the same thing. If you have employees, then you're probably familiar with hiring and firing practices. Okay, moving on. Here's an example of somebody who, again, I read, this is part of the small business section that I put together, and I ran into this guy who works at the letter shop. And he was basically explaining to me about customer relations. This was the focus of the story. So we weren't focusing on his products. Chances are, a newspaper or magazine is not going to write about like how to produce a business card. I know, maybe, I don't know. But in this case, the story was about customer relations and how they get people into their store and to choose them. Because that's a transferable lesson for everybody. How do you get people to choose you? So this, like, look at the size of the photo he got. I don't know how much that would have cost if you bought an ad, probably about $4,000. But he ends up being in for free. And this is the kind of story that he could have pitched to me, but a lot of people don't know that you can do that. And so I want to, include this. It's really important. Understand customer relations is a good transferable lesson, part of business operations that a lot of other businesses want to know. So it made a very good story, and he ends up in the small business section. Now, the third thing is if you have an event announcement. This is a tough one because a lot of people don't often have event announcements, but it does have to be one of the 7 criteria because it's certainly a good hook for a story. So when you do have an event announcement, and I'm not going to include something like launching a website, that's a pretty soft kind of hook, but if you're launching a book and you're going to have a book signing, that's really good. You could I actually encourage my clients to create an event. Maybe you can create a fundraiser for a charity and be the sponsor, right? Like, why not? Get your name in the news for some really good community relations. But when you're doing an event announcement, you have to consider, when are you seeking the coverage? Do you want it beforehand to generate attendance, or do you want it afterwards so that people will know about it and the success of it, and that way the media can come to the event itself? Explain very clearly who is involved, because some of the people that are involved might have interesting stories themselves if you have big names involved in your event. The buzz that's created about this event, you can see on the right there, this the TEDx Stanley Park. This is with Roger Cohen again. By now you might know TEDx Stanley Park is one of the fastest growing TEDx presentations in Vancouver. And this guy, if you don't know, that's Roger right there. And there's me, because I was helping out with PR. Can you connect your product with Kim Kardashian? I throw this in here. I don't know why it's in this slide. But the reason I do this is because media really loves to jump onto celebritainment, right? If you have something about a controversial celebrity, whether maybe you've seen the celebrity is doing something, like doing a certain kind of new fitness regime, and you teach it in your fitness studio, or they're doing a new nutrition diet, and this is what you teach as a nutritionist, or they're wearing a certain type of clothing. I mean, anything that you connect, if you can throw Kim Kardashian in there, it's a bit of a joke, but at the same time, I do suggest if you can connect to the celebritainment industry, then it's a great hook. So you want to try to apply those 7 criteria that I mentioned, so all of those 7 to the event itself. Is it reflecting certain trends or news items? For example, distracted driving. Looking back to the TEDx, in the TEDx, they had a series of speakers. In case you're probably aware, they have a series of speakers throughout the day. And when I worked with Roger in doing the publicity, we went over every single speaker to find out what was their focus and what were they talking about that might be in the news. So at the time, one of the speakers was talking about distracted driving. So the hook is not, hey, here's an event, come and cover it. It's, hey, you know what? We have a speaker talking about this big trend. that became the focus of the story of the pitch, which grabs editors' attention. Because when there's a trend, especially with something like distracted driving, they want to keep adding new people when they're furthering the story. They don't want to go back to the same people all the time. So having somebody who's speaking at TEDx was a really good hook. Again, business operations from the event itself. So Roger had a lot to say about business operations. And when I sat with him, I said, and asked him these questions, we came out with an idea that I hadn't seen before. And this was, how do you work with volunteers? Because he had a lot of volunteers, and still keep them motivated. There was a lot of work. We were all volunteers at the time. There was a lot of work to do. And Roger was really good at keeping people motivated. So I said, well, Roger, can you write a column about how to keep people motivated when you're not paying them? Because there's probably a lot of people who might be putting on an event where they have volunteers. And maybe you can go online and read it, but, if you could present this as a column in the newspaper, you automatically give these transferable lessons. And so we found a couple of other people. This guy in the middle here was also a client of mine. If I can put them all together, why not? There's Roger. Don't remember who that guy was. And we pitched the idea of this Ask the Experts column, and it was picked up right away. And that's because it was like a unique story idea. How, a lot of people write about how to increase your email list and how to use social media. How many people write about how to motivate people who are working for you who don't get paid? Like, it was a great story idea. And then one other element I want to put in, is there an emotional component to your event? If you have an event around like a fundraiser for, a charity, for example, the emotional component is a very strong draw for media, because they know it's a very strong draw for their readership. So, and it could be a negative component as well. Like there might be a negative emotion associated as well. All right. Moving on, okay, there's the example. The right team won't demand big paydays. How do I motivate staff working for very little money? So that was the question that we answered for Ask the Experts. Number 4 on the list, what's new and changing? So I don't want to, again, I don't want this to, you could think of this as a breaking news story, but more like what's shifting in your industry. So here's an example of a guy who is in the tea industry, was on television just talking about tea. And, this is not like some big international expert. This is just a local guy who knows a lot about tea. A lot of the local TV stations, you've probably seen Breakfast Television, Global, they just use average people who have a knowledge in their field. You don't have to be an international expert. Like, I certainly didn't know this guy. Mind you, if you're a big tea aficionado, maybe you know him. So he was on, and he's talking about that the tea industry is shifting because there's a higher demand, that there's a lot of interest on using tea in health-focused diets, that tea could be used as a sleep solution. So, God, the idea of how to get better sleep is a question that will never go out of style. And the fact that the different teas that are being produced is now resulting in a more mature palate. So these, if you remember before, I said, what's in your industry that you know that editors or producers don't know that might, make some interesting conversation? This is a really good example of that. Knowledge about trends. So here is one of the strongest ways you can get a story accepted, and that is when you see a trend going on. Now, this story before about the tea industry was also about trends. So the industry shifting to reflect higher demand. That's a trend story. This is another example, as you can see right on the bottom, this woman being interviewed about kitchen design trends. Not earth-shattering news, nothing that's breaking story. And again, just an average individual who's, and Shona, you might be familiar with trends in your industry around design, because that's what you do. You can't be behind the times. So you're going to be very familiar with furniture design trends. Like, why not speak to that? So to see whether you can connect to the trend, you want to be watching television and reading newspapers and looking at media online to see what is trending. So what are people talking about that media might be interested in following? Pop culture again. Can you connect your product with Kim Kardashian? So there she is again. It's another, I think maybe she was supposed to be on this slide and not the other one. So again, if there is a trend that's going on and you can connect a celebrity to it, then it's a great opportunity to talk about it. So question to ask yourself, what are some of the trends that impact or maybe can be impacted by your business? Maybe your business is setting a trend. You know, have you developed a motorized skateboard, or what did I see on, I think it was a motorized skateboard on television the other day, or maybe it was on Dragon's Den. Is there a seasonal component to your product? This is also a bit of a trend story. So this was a woman talking about how to organize your home better. Again, this is something that people will constantly talk about, but very often comes up when you're doing your spring cleaning and you're trying to organize your home better. Or if people do a lot of moving in the spring or summer as opposed to the winter, then downsizing and cleaning up and getting better storage ideas is a bit of a trend story. So she was on television talking about that. Is there a geographic, a demographic component? Again, another point. You know what? I have worked with PR companies who never even consider this. This is a story, it's called Rebooting. This was for a magazine called Retirement Ready. It was just about people going into retirement. It covered everybody basically 50 and up. This story was about those people who started a business after the age of 50. And it didn't matter what the business was. So this is a consultant here. This is a guy who started a touring company. These are people, if you've been to Gibson's on the wharf there's the Smoke Shack. So they opened up a little restaurant. Both of them were over the age of 50. It doesn't matter what your business is. Look, photograph inside talking about your business. And when there's an article that's written in this way, you can actually, the questions will be like, well, why did you want to start a business after 50 and how hard it was? When you're being asked those questions, you can always talk about the quality of your business and promote your business. Even though the whole article is not about you, when you're asked the questions, you can actually fit in things like, well, in this case, her husband was barbecue master and said, well, my husband has 20 years and he's studied with the greatest barbecue chefs in the world. And we wanted to bring this fabulous product to Gibson's. Boom. She's talking about how great her product is. And anybody reading the story going to Gibson's is going to go and try the barbecue shack. And I've been there. And it's fabulous food. So this is how you can connect. This is a demographic of being over 50. I think I have another one. Oh, wrong one. I took out that other page. Did I? Oh, that's too bad. So geographic as well. There are magazines and newspapers that focus on different areas of the city. For example, the Surrey, as a growing city, has a lot of stories written about it in terms of real estate and even just focusing on small businesses that are popping up there. Asia Pacific Trade is another big one. There are full magazines that focus on Asia Pacific business. So if your business does any trade with Asia, this is a magazine that you can be in. So Shona, I hope I'm answering some of the question, and other people too. When you're wondering where to target, it starts with knowing all the different aspects of your own business. your trends, your demographics, your business around, knowledge around operations. When we pull that out of you, which is done in my course and through one-on-one interviews, when we pull that out of you, then you can figure out, okay, now I know, for example, well, if I'm a person who was in retirement and came out of it to start a business, I'm going to pitch to Retirement Ready or Zoomer Radio or Zoomer Magazine. I have a really great knowledge about how to set up a business in a storefront. I'm going to pitch to this business magazine. So it all stems from your own knowledge and what you can present as expertise. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Tell me what you think that is and see if you can guess the story behind this little critter. So, do you know what it is? Do you know what the story is about? In fact, this was just on the news this morning on global television. Believe it or not, crickets were out. Food, yes, Sue gets the winner. Food. Do you know, this is such a great trend. You might have seen this. It's a cricket. They're used in, do I have the story? New superfood. Do you remember this came out? The new superfood. There was a great story on it. And this morning on the morning news shows, they're talking about how deep fried grasshoppers are being served at the Mariners games. Seriously, they are selling out. 13 pounds selling out at every game. So if you have any connection to this industry, boy, oh boy, this is picking up, not like runaway train, but this is what I mean by like a continuing follow-up trend story. It shows up in one area, like Vancouver Protein Bar Company. Now it's in a story about the Mariners. Maybe you don't have crickets in your food, but maybe you're in the food industry and you'd be interested in writing a column about the importance of this food. Maybe you run a restaurant and you can say, yep, this is why I would bring it in, or no, I'm never going to bring it in. You know, this was served as a Mariners game. So I don't know, maybe you have a connection to some sort of sporting event and you could just choose to bring this in. This is how you create an event hook. See the trend and see if you can connect it to something that you do or bring it in. So maybe you had an event that you were planning anyway, and you can bring this in as part of it. Now you've got a great news hook. So if you were to have some sort of, you're trying to publicize, well, let's go back to Roger and TEDx. Let's say he decided to serve snacks of deep fried crickets at TEDx. I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here. That would be a great story, and I think the media would be all out of it. High protein, saw it on Shark Tank. Yeah, that's right. So it's not a runaway train in terms of trends, but it's definitely something that the media is going to be watching. So any kind of niche or quirky content. Okay, I'm going to take a break. If you've been away from your computer or checking your email, come back. Come back, because here's the really lovely sort of nugget of information that I mentioned in my emails that even a lot of professional PR people don't know. And this is the use of editorial calendars. I was just I ran into somebody who has a public relations firm here in Vancouver, and she just asked me a quick question about, helping publicize her business, her client's business. And I said, well, it sounds like your client is connected to the sort of hospitality industry because she runs a restaurant. Have you thought of pitching to the hospitality and tourism section in Business Vancouver? And she kind of looked at me like, obviously didn't even know it existed. Editorial calendars are put out by many online and physical magazines and newspapers that present special sections and special magazines that are coming up for the year. So here's an example. So this is the BIV Content Planner, April and May. You can see there are special sections on human resources, mining, Asia Pacific, small business, real estate. If you have any story idea that could connect to a section, and you were to email an editor and put the name of that section as the first words in the subject line, I would say a 95% chance that you are being opened before everybody else. I used to edit these sections, and it's very hard to find appropriate stories when you have to fill a specific section. So I can't go and put a story about crickets in a section on human resources. I mean, maybe I could swing it, but it's not obvious. So when it came time that I had to fill the section, I would scan my email and see, is anybody talking about HR? Is there anything here about hiring or firing or other human resources? I would scan the subject line. And if I saw it, I would open it up and see, is there a column that somebody could write, an expert, or is there a story that we could send a reporter to? And this works both in the consumer and business arena. In fact, this one on the left, this is the calendar for Vita magazine online. The one, if I remember earlier, has 90,000 subscribers across Canada. So this shows you, and Shona and anybody else who does anything in the home staging, home decor, clothing, food, health, travel, this editorial calendar here is where you would want to actually look, because it is a powerful tool. You not only connect what you have with a section, but this lets the editor know that you are familiar with their publication. And editors and producers want to know that you're not just reaching out blindly, but you're actually familiar with the media outlet that you're pitching to. See how I'm doing here. Okay. I'm just going to give one example with a few tips here, because I don't have time to go into all the different styles of media pitches and structure, but I'm going to do what I can here. So this is an example that actually came from a company that was publicizing the, this was back in 2015, but it's still a great example. I still get press releases like this. This was an event. It was the wellness show. And you can see there's just a lot of stuff to read. This was about 550 words, I think. You want to keep your material down to 150 to 200 words. There are exceptions. When you're dealing with things like in the real estate industry, for example, when you're publicizing things in the real estate industry, if you have a new tech product and you have to go into explanation about what it does, there are certain exceptions. But in general, you want to keep your pitch very eye-friendly. So not a lot of gray. You don't want to hide, in here you have like just hidden ideas for stories that, as an editor, I don't know what's in there that's a good story. More information just in paragraph form. And this is really odd, like to have the timing, the list of the dates in paragraph form. This is how I would rewrite it. So you want to make sure that if you have some good story angles, you pull them out right at the top, because you never know whether what you're pitching, it might not generate coverage right now, but the editor might keep it in mind for a future story that is topical. We want to make sure that you alternate some long sentences with short bullet points. And if you do have dates, I always suggest you put it very clearly in a list, so that if I am going to send somebody to it, I know exactly when it's going to happen, and I don't have to try and scramble through all the material. Some of the things to point out, editors kind of differ in their opinion on whether or not you should include these title ideas. I thought it was appropriate because they were kind of fun, why coconut water is the new Coke, because it's quite trendy. What exactly is alkaline water? These are some things that would generate curiosity by the recipient, and so it could form, it could actually form the basis of a good story, and therefore we'll have the editor turn around and send a journalist. So here's a bit of a summation. Well, into the just at the end of the hour, that's good. So some of the points that you might be interested in. 85% of writers open email based on the subject line. In the subject line, use 45 to 65 characters. That is very hard to do. But I want to let you know, and you probably know yourself, when you're looking at your email, it gets cut off. The subject lines often get cut off. So if you can't fit what's really important in 4 to 6 words, you may lose the attention. So I always say, look, aim for 4 to 6 words of what's really crucial. If you remember me talking about the special sections, put the name of that special section right up front to grab the editor's attention. And then if there's other material you really feel you have to put in the subject line, then have it a bit later. So just in case it gets cut off, like visually, you still have the important information seen. Only 10% cared if their name was in the subject line. That actually takes up space. So I don't, these days you have these bots that send spam with your name in the subject line. So it doesn't really make a difference. I would take it out. If you can, on your website, have a media page. This is just one page that has all your information together so we don't have to click around all over the place looking for it. A bio, possible topics you might have for writing, previous coverage if you have been in media, a high-res photograph that we might use. Look around at consultants or other types of entrepreneurs' media pages. If you're in my course, I'll give you some examples and show you how to structure that. It's just a really great way to get media's attention as well, because you just put one link, say, here's my media page. And that's more attractive for an editor or producer to click on than here's my website. Because I know if I go to a website, I'm going to get a home page, then I have to click on the about page, then I have to click on the background page, and I may never even get the information I want. So having a media page is very helpful. Your pitches can be used for traditional and social media as well. So my students have used the pitches for podcasts that they want to be interviewed on. They wanted to write guest blogs. They wanted to be expert speakers in people's meetup groups and things like that. This is a communication style. It's not just reaching out to media, it's a communication style. And as I mentioned, keep it very short. 88% want fewer than 200 words in the email. So I'm going to ask you this question. It's while you're sitting there wondering, well, can I do this? Where do I start? Who do I pitch to? The bigger question is, do you know what you're missing out on by not reaching out to media? I've touched on this a little bit before. This small business column that was written, not just 3,500 value, but 40,000 readers. 40,000 readers. And when you subscribe to something, these are paid readers. So when you pay for a subscription, you're definitely going to be more likely to read through that newspaper or magazine or look at it online if you have an online subscription than if you're just clicking through random social media. So to help people out, I've developed this media mastery system. If you remember, I said I really wanted to help entrepreneurs who don't know where to start or who have gotten some coverage, they don't know where to continue. So I've worked on this for the last 4 years and using my experience in media. So this is 5 steps that I've put together so you can access free publicity. This is not how do I write an article and pay for it to be published. This is so that you can actually do a few hours, literally a few hours of work a month, not a week, but a month, to generate free publicity for your business. And if you think, to keep on top of people's minds, in social media, you probably should be putting out 1 blog or 2 a week. That's usually about the level, a minimum. Imagine how many hours that takes. This would cut that down by half. Now, I'm not saying replace one with the other, but just as a comparison, to have this kind of media outreach is essential as part of a marketing strategy. So this is what I do. It's a 6-week program. We start with an overview of how media works. We get clear on your story. If you remember, it all starts with the story. You need to know all the different ways that you can pitch your business, all the different ways that you can access your knowledge, and that helps you determine who to go after in terms of targeting media. We understand, we figure get you to understand how to select the right media for you. We work on creating those perfect pitches. I lead you through how to make the first contact, including how do you find those editors and producers' contact information. I spend a whole session on this because there's a lot of tricks. Like you can go in and find a name and click around for like an hour and not find their actual email. But I know how to work around the system. And once you've pitched, what do you do for follow-up? What if you don't hear from them? What if you hear from them and they sounded interested, but they didn't get back to you? We go over all of that. The second component is the live training. So not only are there weekly classes, but you have the Q&A component so that every session we have a Q&A that deals with whatever we dealt with as homework for the previous session. I use one-to-one coaching. So I will take examples. If you produce material for me to look at, I'm going to go over it one-to-one in the classroom so that everybody can learn from the one-to-one coaching. And every session has a very simple action to follow up with homework. So because it's a step-by-step plan, it's like, here's the first step. All right, here's your homework. You go off and do it, and you're kept accountable. I follow up with everybody to make sure you're doing it. My goal is always to make sure that everybody completes the course with having completed at least one and probably 2 media pitches and having sent them out to the media. So it's not like you're going to go away with this whole bunch of material and no action. I already have somebody who's gotten acceptance into Business Vancouver from the last course. Component 3, this is going to be lifetime access to a support group in Facebook. It's private, so it's just people who are focused and really committed to learning about and finding out more information about pitching to media. I'm in there every day. People post questions and I answer them. Other people answer them. This is an ongoing group. So when you join a course, you're in it with people who've already taken the course previously, who already have tried different methods for reaching out. So if you wanted to learn about, hey, did anybody reach out to BC Business or Vitamin Daily or Vancouver Sun? What did you do? Who did you talk to? That's where you would go. It's a place where you can post your homework. So if you want to test out subject lines, or maybe you're even not sure on your kind of 1-minute pitch of who you are and what you do, test it out in this group. It's a safe place, and these are people that are committed to helping one another. And this accountability keeps you on track, which we know is so crucial. One of the biggest problems people face is not actually following up on what they're supposed to do. This is the kind of place, if you don't post, I'm going in there, I'm going to say, hey, hello, Quinn, Shona, what's going on? I'm going to ask you in this group and keep you on track. So some of the bonuses that are included, these templates that I've created based on my experience as an editor, they're set up so you get a template as well as an example. So it's not just like, okay, I see I'm supposed to fill this in, but I don't know exactly what to write. You ever have that experience, like fill in the blank, but not sure what you're talking about? So you get the template and then you get an example so you can understand like, oh, okay, I understand how to do that now. Editorial calendars that I mentioned, I am constantly updating this collection of editorial calendars. And every other week or so, since I'm doing this for my clients anyway, just today, who did I go after? I can't remember. Downloading somebody's editorial calendar this morning. So you don't have to do that work. You don't have to search for them. But I do show you, if you want to learn how to search for and find the editorial calendars and the media kits, I will show you how to do that. But then I go and do that for you and create this a Dropbox for them. So to explain how this works, this is what the value of this material is. The 6-week program alone, just in terms of a webinar series, is a $2,000 value. The live training that you get with me, when I calculate all the hours that I put into it and what it would translate if I was doing like one-to-one, that's a $3,000 value. Lifetime access, some of you might know that there are websites, Facebook groups where you're going to pay like $99 a month. So if you work it all out, I mean, it's probably a lot more than this. It's hard to say, but I'm estimating it at about $2,000 value because I figure you probably stay around for 2 years. So around $99 a month, you know, that's about a $2,400 value. The bonus, access to the template. So this material, if somebody wants just these templates, I charge $1,000 for this because of the work, and I'm constantly updating them as well and using more contemporary examples. So the examples that I use reflect what's actually going on, not day to day, but you know, in a contemporary way. Access to all the editorial calendars of $500 value, and as well, and this is my big bonus, I'm creating a 3-day boot camp in June. So those people who participate in the course can come in and attend to the boot camp. That's where we're going to sit down, we're going to go over material from the course, we're going to have lots of time to write and have feedback, so that you get really clear. I know a lot of people, I've attended a lot of these boot camps, you might have as well. These are comprehensive and focused to get the results that are you know, going to be really applicable for what you want to do. Just checking in on the questions here. Content calendars are public online. Some are and some aren't. So in some cases, you can just click around. If you know where to go on a website, you can find the content calendar. They're usually in the media kits. Sometimes you need to contact a certain department in order for them to send you their media kit, which would have the content calendars. So it varies from place to place. Thanks for that question, Leigh. So this is more than $10,000 of services. The cost of my program, I value at $1,997. However, I am still in a beta test phase. So I'm still growing it, I'm still tweaking it. And so for the short term, you know, maybe for the next few months, I am offering it at a regular price of $997. That's for 6 weeks, including everything that I mentioned earlier. Beyond that, if you act quickly, so this is that little incentive, because I really want to start working with people right away. As soon as people sign up, I start contacting them, I start finding out about your business. So I'm going to try and give you an incentive to sign up right away. 72 hours, $597. So essentially, you're getting $1,400 off this. Now, I want to explain something, and if you've gone away from your computer, if you're checking your email, come back right now. Here's why. When I am hired to write for a company who just wants me to put out a media kit for them, or to produce, let's say, a pitch template or a press release, that alone is $350. Okay, that's how much I charge because of the background that I bring. Because I bring, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of public relations companies have people who've gone through journalism and have worked in journalism, but not sat behind the editor's desk. So $597, I think you can probably agree it's pretty much of a steal. And I'm sorry, that is a mistake. That should say 3 payments of $177. 3 payments. I don't want to rip you off there. 3 payments of $177. So I want to just mention something. You know, we're always hardwired to take the back door. That's like, well, I'm not sure. I don't know. And we feel kind of like we should do something. We really want to, but you're not sure. And the more you think like, well, I don't know, the less likely it is to take action. But you know what happens when you commit, when you actually say, yeah, you know what, I'm taking the first step. I'm throwing my hat into the ring. because when you commit, you know, there's really only one way to go forward. Well, one way to go, and that's like going forward. When you're waffling, wishy-washy, you can go backwards quite easily, and then you just find yourself in the same place like 6 months from now. So I want to just ensure that you get what you want from this course. And so my promise, as I mentioned, that through the course, I'm going to be hand-holding as much as possible. Anytime you have questions on how to write even a single sentence, that is my expertise. That is what you're getting. And I can take a media pitch and swing it around to sound the way it's supposed to sound with my eyes closed, my hands tied behind my back. And I know that that's not your forte. And it may never be your forte because it shouldn't be. You're busy doing your business. So why does it, you know, why should you expect it to be your forte like right off the bat? With the course, I lead you step by step so that you actually come out knowing how to produce this at any time. So my guarantee is 100% back. At the end of the course, if you feel like, you know what, I didn't get to that press release, I didn't get to pitch to media. If you don't have something ready and actually sent out, not just ready to go, but sent out, I mean, I can't force you to send it out, but ready to go, hopefully sent out. If you don't have that, you get 100% money back guarantee. The way I work it is I bring you to the point where you have the material ready to go. I help you on your strategy. I help you understand how to pitch, where to pitch. I help you with all the content. I insist that you do not send any media pitches out until I have seen it, because I don't want you to go down the wrong path and then be disappointed because you don't get a response. So every person in my course has to send their material to me first to vet. As well, if you are asked to write a column, so if you actually pitch the idea of an expert column and an editor gets back to you and says, yes, I'd like 700 words by next Tuesday, if you want me to read that column so I can edit it and have it ready for publication, I will do that. All right? So that is my promise to you. I'm going to make sure that everybody has enough time for questions in the class. Everybody gets their material read when they need to read it. Everybody has feedback from me as much as possible. So I am going to see if I can actually get the material that I need, and let's go into here, and this is what I'm going to give you for your link. And let's see if I can do this properly. Oop. Okay, I have lost my screen here. See, this is what happens when you use, let's try this. Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. All right. I want to see if this is showing up here. No, come on. Grab it up. Did that work? Okay. I don't know why I'm not getting this into to everyone. Yes. All right. I'm trying to enter. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So here is the link if you want to get that $597 offer. Sorry about that confusion. And this is what I'm going to offer for the first, let's say 5 people. First 5 people, you're going to get an hour-and-a-half session with me, which is usually valued at $497. An hour and a half where we're going to talk one-on-one to get you started finding out what your business is and what are all the areas that you can pitch to. What are all the key things that you can use to focus on, whether it's trends, business operations, if you do have events, everything that you need to get ready on pitching to media. So we're now just at 11:20, which is about where I wanted to be, which is great. I am going to open up. Oh, I'm sorry, the dates. Yes, that would be important. It's in that ClickFunnels link. It is starting on May, it's Tuesday, it's 10 a.m., and it's starting on May the 16th. So let me put that in. Now, all of them are going to be recorded, so you'll be able to watch it in case you miss one of the classes. And I also help people if you find that you can't attend every class or you're missing a few more and you're finding it hard to catch up. I will work with you directly to ensure that you have what you need to fulfill on the homework. And if we have to work a little bit one-on-one outside the class, then we'll do that. So I've had that in my last class. People missed, 1 or 2 out of the 6 classes. So we did some one-on-one. But the boot camp is going to be in a physical location. I'm just finalizing it now. It's going to be in June, and it's probably going to be at the YWCA. However, I am going to find out, as soon as I find out if their Wi-Fi is powerful enough, I'm going to create it so that it can be attended online as well. So the ones that I have been to, some of them have just been in person, some of them have been both. It is always problematic because you need a lot of bandwidth to carry that out when you've got 3 days and all the people in the room and so on. So if I can ensure that it can be done down at the YWCA, then I'll do it. I like using the YWCA because when I pay for the room, it goes to their programs. And so I think they're okay with it. I think that the Wi-Fi is set up well. Shona, okay, you're welcome. Take care. And yeah, if you have any questions, privately, okay. If you have any questions, I hope that link works. If somebody can just click on probably the bottom one, like here, you can see that it's been duplicated because I had problems when I tried to hit, but I think if you hit one, okay, thank you, David, it works. And here's the other thing I wanted to offer in terms of the, if I can get you, now bear with me to get, no, I don't have the link here. If you email me, answer these 2 questions, I am going to send you the link to those, the Dropbox I have with all the editorial calendars. So there are 2 questions. One is, what I took away from this webinar, the biggest takeaway. And 2 is, what else would you like to see in the webinar? Email the answers to those 2 questions, and then I will give you the link. I can't do it here because of the technology, and it would take too long. Are there any other questions? If you want, you can unmute yourself, and we can just do a little verbal wrap-up. If you have some questions, I'm available for a while, so if you wanted to just jump in and say, hey, listen, how would you deal with this? How would you deal with that? Just let me know. Anybody? I see somebody showing up there. Who have we got? David. Hi, David.
How are y'all?
Was that too fast? I hope I covered a lot of material. I don't usually do like 70 slides in an hour.
Yeah, a lot of slides, but you know what, Bela? Some wonderful stuff. I had no idea that there were so many options and great ways to publicize what it is that I do. And so I'm going to sign up.
Oh, fabulous.
That's why I know your link works, because I tried it already.
Okay,
I'm there.
Excellent. Great. Yeah. I think it's really the one thing that's underestimated are the different angles. And you know what? If you have clients who are interesting, you can get access to media by leveraging your clients. So I don't know if that's clear, but the same way I was helping, I'm just taking some notes about something here. The same way I was helping Roger when we were doing TEDx, I didn't focus just on TEDx, although the whole development of TEDx is a good story. I said, let's focus on the people that are in TEDx and what their specialties are, what their focus is. And so, for example, if you have an interesting story of a client who might have used your work or your consulting or worked with you in order to improve their business, then we can get the two of you into an article about that development, transferable lessons. Do you get what I mean?
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so the reason we do this is because most publications will not want to put the same people in over and over and over again. You know, like they'll do, if I had a client go into one publication and do a column, then the next 6 months, probably they wouldn't run him again. So we have to find a new way to get that, to get more media coverage. So maybe, 1 month you might write a column in an expertise that you have, but then 3 months later, we use a different angle in order to get you into a story of a different nature. And maybe you're in, business in Vancouver is a good example, or I should say Glacier Media is a good example, as they have numerous magazines and newspapers. Canada-wide publishing also has numerous magazines. And sometimes a lot of people don't know that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And so you can be in one magazine and then another one and another one over the course of a year, and they won't really know. It's just hard to keep track of that. So, but you have to be able to tailor your pitch for the different topics of each magazine. So it's another way to get a lot of media coverage and to maintain your presence in the media.
Good. Some great thoughts. I'm inspired.
Angle to leverage my client's story, like that one would really work for your biz. Sue, did you tell us what your biz is? I don't know if you did. You can unmute, or you can. So funny. I don't know. Is Sue there?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm here.
I can hear you now. Yes. Okay, Sue.
Yeah, it's Sue Clement. I'm a business coach. You
know me. It's Sue Clement.
Yeah.
I don't have your answer there. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So that would be perfect for him.
And I don't have your last name, so.
Well, I'm not. I'm on the phone rather than on the computer. I couldn't get my mic to work.
Yeah. No, I
dialed in too.
Yeah, and you're in the same kind of ball game as David when you're in the business consulting realm. What I always look at is, okay, what are some stories that we can get from your clients where your clients are going to say in the story, yes, I worked with so-and-so who helped me, and then we get you in as part of the story as well. It's just, there's a lot of different ways to work around it. It's what I call kind of kneading the story, like kneading dough. You start with kind of big lump, and you need it in order to, maybe you'll roll it out, maybe you'll make cookies, maybe you'll make it, whatever. But it's being able, or to massage the story in a way where you can leverage all the different aspects of your business. And
Well,
so you also have just a great story yourself. What happens if you take some time off? Because you had been telling me that there was a time where you're kind of away and then you're coming back. What does that do in terms of branding or maintaining customer relations? How do you reconnect with your clients if you haven't connected with them in a while? That's a good question to answer. And by doing it, you kind of become the expert. There's no real person who's an expert in, hey, I'm going to teach you how to reconnect if you've been away a while. But by doing something like that, you have the transferable lesson. So it might be something that you can include as part of a column.
Yeah, I just love the idea of a twofer.
Yep.
Like your client and yourself. I think that's really great. I mean, I'm excited over that one.
Yeah. And I try as much as possible when I'm working with my clients to get two clients at least into a story. So we leverage each other's knowledge base. So for instance,
Mm-hmm.
If you and David, for example, had some similar complementary advice, we could potentially put you together and pitch the two of you in a story or something like that.
I like that for my clients as well, Bela.
Oh, who am I talking with?
I'm Catherine.
Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Catherine
Yeah,
Steele. Hi. Yeah, I have
Yeah, I hear your
pronunciation
voice.
clients, and although they're working on pronunciation with me, they're from the world originally. They are business owners in their own rights. They've got cool things going on in engineering, accounting, that kind of thing. And so the part Sue is saying, the twofer angle is wonderful because it gets to promote them, and they are already a highly respected professional in their first culture, and they're bringing that to Canada, and we're missing out on it. So that would be
And
a beautiful
where are they
opportunity.
mostly from?
Everywhere in the world.
Okay.
Everywhere other than Canada.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the whole trend of talking about people, immigrants and refugees, that's a trend that's going to be around as long as Trump is in power, which hopefully will not be very long. But that trend in and of itself, like even if you put the word immigrant or refugee story or something in it like that in a subject line, will draw an editor or producer's attention, because editors and producers are always constantly trying to forward the story, which means take a story that they did before, put a different spin on it, some new information, some different context, and now they have a new story, but it's still part of a trend. And, being able to, bye Sue, thank you for joining. So being able to leverage that kind of information and that interest makes it a lot easier to pitch that kind of thing. I'm curious to know, are these younger people, or are they kind of older people? You said that they're running businesses, so what are the
They're
demographics?
typically between, say, 30 and 50. They're established professionals for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, even right now I'm thinking, my mind always goes, because that's why I'm a journalist. As soon as I hear something, my mind is thinking, and I'm wondering, there are a lot of stories about, so are they immigrants then, or are they?
They are immigrants, yes.
They are immigrants,
they are immigrants.
So the contribution of immigrants to the economy is a great business story, right? And that's a perfect way to get, all your students in. How many do you typically work with?
They generally hire me one-on-one. They prefer that. I do offer smaller groups, but most people have time conflicts.
How many are you working with?
I work with 3 per month, typically.
Okay, good. Yeah, so sure, having that the ability to leverage their knowledge and what they've learned and their point of view of being an immigrant in business operation. And one thing I didn't have time to go into a lot of stuff. If you can get into a smaller publication, like one that's maybe less known, use it to generate interest by other media.
Okay.
So if you, for example, there's Canadian Immigrant Magazine, I think you might see outside.
Yes.
So that's a smaller publication, and they're usually easier to get into. The editors usually have a lot of work that they're doing, and it's more difficult for them to get really good stories. So if you could pitch a story that's focused on immigrant businesses and they pick it up, that might go onto a media page, or you could at least say, like, you know, we've previously been in this magazine, so it demonstrates some credibility.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Bela. I'm going to have to leave.
Okay.
Bye, David. Bye, Sue.
Yeah.
And bye, everyone else.
Nice.
Bye, Catherine. See you soon. All right.
Okay. So we're down to just a few. Any last questions? Sue's gone. David's gone.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, thanks for this, Bela. I think it's wonderful stuff. As I said, the opportunity to put our services out to people in different ways that position it as authorities is, I keep looking for ways to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about traditional media or semi-traditional media as a way to do that. So really.
And, you know, if you want, I'm happy to come and speak to one of your classes directly, if that...
Usually by the end of my one-day seminar, everybody's burned out. I don't have time to cram anything in.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, I think the idea of co-marketing is a good one for us too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. If there are no other questions, I'm going to sign off. I want to thank everybody for attending today. You have my email in the sidebar if you have any questions. And if you want to see a little bit more about what that, what I'd gone over, click on the link and it's all on the page where you can sign up for the course if you like. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye for now.